Booktube. So today I'm coming to you to talk about some of the bad books I read in 2020. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of good books I read, and I think my average star rating on Goodreads was like a 4, so that's always great. But there were definitely some 2-star and 1-star books that I just absolutely hated, whether it be because the author was controversial, or there was an element of the book that I hated, or the book was just really, really boring. So today I just want to talk to you guys about some of the books that I read in 2020 that I absolutely hated. And yes, there is still around a month of December, but I feel like I'm not going to read any more books that I absolutely hate this year, but that might be jinxing it, but I think this is a good time to make this video. So the first book I want to talk about is Eleanor Park by Rainbow Rowell. I'm going to be honest with you, this was one of the books I read entirely because of the hype. I had no real interest in this book. If you follow my channel, you know I don't really like romance a lot, and it doesn't normally do it for me. This book wasn't really one I'd be excited or interested in, but there was just so much hype for it. And so being new to this entire YA reading thing, I just picked it up. And when I initially read it, I had not read that much YA, so I did like it. But now I've read more YA, and I've also found out what Rainbow Rowell has done about the controversies relating to Park and his Asian representation in this book. And so that has dropped it to, I think, a 2 or 1 star for me on Goodreads. It's in that range. It's definitely not a 3-star. But this is your stereotypical romance book. It's two misfits find solace in each other one day, but then life gets really weird and they have to try to find their way through this really messy thing called life. It's a very stereotypical romance, and it doesn't have amazing writing. Again, it does not have a good representation. It has a lot of stereotypes and cliches. The characters are interesting, but also bland, if that makes sense. And there's not really anything amazing about this book. And another thing about it is that it's technically a historical fiction, but nothing about this book feels like historical fiction. Also, there's just no plot to this book at all. Things just happen and the characters react to it. And that's not the sort of thing I typically like. Like, the characters don't really go out of their way to do anything. Things just happen. I was really excited about this book. I bought it for the hype. I bought this special edition with fan art and exclusive Q&A. And now I don't even show it on my bookshelves. It's down here in a murky place you never see. So the next book I want to talk about is The View from Saturday by E.L. Konigsberg. I've read, what's that book? The Mixed Files of Frank Miss Basil E. Frankweiler. The Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. And really enjoyed that one. And so this was the other book of hers that got the Newbery Award, and so I really wanted to check it out. When I tell you this book had no plot and was so boring, it's the truth. The characters were super boring, and even in like a really short book, like you would have think like maybe the pacing got a little faster because you're trying to cram everything in, but literally nothing happened. It was just the backstories on these 4 characters that I didn't really care about and were described in excruciating detail that was pointless and didn't really serve anything to the story, especially because I did not care in the least about these characters. And it was just the 4 backstories of these characters, them meeting up, and then winning a spelling bee. It was boring, it was pretentious, and I did not click with it. I did not like it. This isn't a very popular book, so I don't think I changed your decision, but I just wanted to share that I did not like this book, and it was very boring and pretentious, and while the writing was good because it's E.L. Konigsberg, I didn't like it at all. Okay, so the next one is one I made an entire rant review about, so you can go check that out up here. But it is Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know by Samira Ahmed. Now, I loved Love, Hate, and Other Filters. Like, love, Hate, and Other Filters. It was amazing, beautiful, poignant. That's not how you say the word, but it was that. It just had everything I love in a book, and it also had great representation. However, this book just didn't do it for me. It was a romance book, mainly romance. I went into this book thinking it was going to be a lot about art history and like exploring this mysterious thing that's been lost, but a tendency that Samira Ahmed has is she has this interesting thing that she wants to talk about that draws me in. Even with Love, Hate, Not the Filters, like she wants to talk about art or photography or something like that. But then, because she knows it's YA, and she thinks YA is just romance, she just makes 95% of her books romance. And she does not write amazing romance. Like even with Love, Hate, Not the Filters, I didn't like the book because of the romance at all. But this really had no redeeming elements. Like I felt like, I'm pretty sure Love, Hate, Not the Filters was her debut. She took such a step back with this one. I liked the setting of Paris, and while our history was explored, I just felt like the romance was so boring. The love triangle was, I could see it from a mile away. I was like, this is going to happen. It's going to be dumb. But the thing about it was that all of like the conflicts or like the problems in this book were solved so easily. Like they needed to find something. Let's just go to this museum we found on Google Maps in 5 minutes. It'll be there. We want to solve this problem in the love triangle? It's fine, we'll talk it out, and it'll take 10 minutes. Like, things were way too easy in this book, and it was just a slog to get through, and I only finished it because I wanted to make that rant review to show how bad it was, and I wanted to be able to give my full thoughts on it because maybe it had a redeeming ending, but it really didn't. Yes, I liked the representation in this book, and so that's why I did rate, I think, 2 stars instead of 1. But there was nothing that I loved about this book, and I also just did not click with our main characters whatsoever. The next one is Everything, Everything by Nicola Yoon. This is a book that was good. Up until the ending, it was a solid 3 or 4 stars, probably leaning more to 3 stars if we're being honest. It had good, decent characters, it had a semblance of a plot, but really I was just bored by it. And I really only kept reading to see how this was going to end, like what was going to happen, and let's talk about what happened. It was incredibly disappointing. The ending, like, it was one that was very predictable, and it was always in the back of my mind, but I was like, no, Nicola Yoon would never do this. But there was one scene right in the beginning that clued me on, like, this is a real possibility, but she's for sure not going to go there. She's going to be more novel with her creative liberty in this book. And then she went the predictable route that I hated. It really just did a disservice to the entire book. It really just made me feel as if I had just wasted my time reading this book. It really just undercut everything, undermined everything. It ruined the book for me. I made this entire video about like really bad endings in books, so you could go check that video out. But like, this book already wasn't off to the best start. Again, this is a romance. Have you noticed a theme? A lot of these books are romances that I hated because I just didn't click with the characters. And if I don't click with one of the characters in a romance, I'm not going to click with the romance. Especially if it was written in the way that it was. David Yoon, which is ironic because he's her husband, did what Nicola Yoon tried in this book to perfection. Frankly Love is one of my favorite books of this year, but I'll talk about that in a video later down the line where I talk about my favorite books of 2020. But anyway, that's what Nicola Yoon tried to do in this book, and I just didn't like it. The texting was so pretentious. That's how people text. I'm gonna have to read the text over, but like, I remember them not seeming real at all. Like, they're using quotations, they're using actual punctuation, like they're using periods. Like, that's not texting. So yeah, this is a book that I'm not going to say it had potential, but it ruined 95% of the book with that stupid ending. And I can see why people would like the ending. I definitely can, but I personally just did not. So yeah, it's here in the murky depths of the most bottom shelf that I never show you guys. Where is this next book? I probably should have gathered these books before I started filming. The next book was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. The format of this book didn't work for me. The writing was good. The main character was alright, and I loved the representation in the book, how it really explored that. And I feel like this book is really important because of that. The vignette style just didn't work for me, and it served toward the plot not really having any substance. Like, I'm okay with a contemporary or any book, well, not a fantasy really, but I'm okay with the book not having a plot. Like, John Green is one of my favorite authors. You can't tell me his books have any sort of plot. But House on Mango Street just didn't work for me. There was a lot of scenes that just built the character, but I just didn't like it. It didn't really serve toward the plot. And I get that that's like the vignette style, like that's how the book is supposed to be written, but that just didn't work for me, and I hated the book because of that, because I know Sandra Cisneros has a really good writing style, and I might want to pick up one of her other books to see how she writes without a vignette style, and maybe I'll love that book. But the style of this book and how many wasted pages I had to read just didn't do it for me, and I just left this book like not feeling anything, which isn't the best to feel from a book that is being heralded as this classic. So yeah. Okay. So I made a full-on rant on this in my Reading Rush vlog, so I'll leave it up here. But the next book is Stardust. So this was one of those rare books where, I think this is the one or two, there has to be only one or two, that I watched the movie before reading the book. I feel like that was what made the book bad for me, because the movie was, oh my god, it was fantastic. I loved the magical elements, I loved the plot, I loved the characters, I loved everything about it, literally everything. And then I was watching the ending cinematography, I was watching the ending credits, and it said based on a book by Neil Gaiman. So I searched it up, and it was indeed based on a book by Neil Gaiman. And so then it fit into one of the Reading Rush prompts. I forget which one it was. Maybe it was, like, read a book that you already watched the movie of. I'm pretty sure it was that. But I read it for the Reading Rush, and it was so different from the movie in the worst way possible. So many things I liked about the movie, like how it was really quick-paced, and the curse, and like the different cast of characters, and how relatable they were, and all of and the theme of love just worked for me. And in this book, I did not connect to the characters. I felt like the curse was so underdeveloped. Like, it wasn't as fascinating as I would have wanted it to be. The book also went really slow, and so many comedic elements I guess I liked about the book, and so many like tone-setting elements about the book just weren't as developed, and I spent more time in elements that I didn't care about than the ones I loved in the movie. Maybe if I had read the book first, I would have liked it, but since I had watched the movie and realized the potential of this plot, I realized that the book was just not up to par, and that is not what I would have expected to say for a Neil Gaiman book. And I know Mare hates me for saying this, but yeah, I just did not like Stardust. I have loved the Graveyard book. I have loved The Ocean at the End of the Lane, but Stardust only got 3 stars. Alright guys, I think that's around all of the books I want to talk about. Those were just the books that I absolutely hated. There were definitely some other 3-star books, but they were good. Like The Upside Unrequited I did not love, but there were some good elements on it, and it was still a fun read, so like it's not a hated book of 2020 or anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed me quickly ranting about these books. I'm sorry if I hurt any of your feelings, but I hope next week or so I will be putting out a video about some of my favorite books of 2020, and there are definitely a lot of good ones, so definitely stay tuned for that. Like, comment about some of your worst reads of 2020 if you have any opinions on what I read. Subscribe. I post videos a lot. I don't have a schedule. I used to. It's insane. But I post a lot. Turn notifications on so you get the really exciting reading vlog I'm posting on Saturday, and my favorite books of 2020, and a lot of other cool stuff. And I'll see you guys next time with another video. Bye.